Yeah, and you were a great amateur player. You probably, I don't know if you remember this, but we played against each other at CCNC in '80 when you won. And I always tell the story and how good you were. I said, I was one over and got beat 5-4. I said, the man took out a driver off the deck at 9. I'd never seen that in my life. And I was just like, I got a slingshot here in a pistol fight. So I didn't think I had much chance. But what kept you motivated to keep getting better as an amateur and as you continued on?
Well, uh, I don't know. I've got caught in my own personal journey. That's what we talk about here at the academy. That this is your own personal journey, and when you get on a journey with someone else, um, the whole expectations change and everything else. I was able to stay on my own personal journey until actually I had some success on the tour, and then once you do that, then everybody else is weighing in, as you well know, with their thoughts of your failures and your successes. And, then all of a sudden it becomes more difficult to stay on your own personal journey. It seems like everybody in the world is riding the journey with you. And, you can't allow that to happen if you really want to be good.
Yeah, you mentioned that because I remember when you won the PGA, you had those great early years. You were compared to Jack Nicklaus. That had to be a lot of pressure, wasn't it?
It was a lot of pressure. I mean, who in the world other than Tiger Woods has ever really lived up to any of the comparisons of Jack Nicklaus? And, we were completely different kinds of players, and all of a sudden to be compared to that guy, that you think that what he did was perfect and you need to try to, do what he did
Mm-hmm.
instead of maximize what you have. And that's why we call it here your own personal journey. To me, you're going to know this better than anybody else, Jim. We ran around trying to get other people to help us that the world had acclaimed as a good teacher
Mm-hmm.
because, they were well known, so they obviously knew something that others didn't know, which we all know now is not always the case.
Right.
So in your case, your dad taught you the majority of what you know. And there's nobody that will love you and give you his honest feelings more so than your dad. In your case, you were lucky that it was your dad. But
Mm-hmm.
in other people's cases, it's usually their somebody that they started working with at an early age that helped them progress rapidly, and they gain confidence and trust in that person, and that's probably who they ought to keep working with. And we think that somebody will do better that maybe has more knowledge. Well, they don't have the love and the care for you that the original person had. To me, the person that always helped me the most is the person that I knew that when I wasn't there, they were still thinking about how to help me.
Right. Jackie Burke is a great friend of yours. What did you do? Did you pick his brain? What have you learned from Jackie over the years?
I learned a lot of things from Jackie. Most of the things I learned from Jackie were more about life than they were about golf. But we all know that golf parallels life. And, probably the most profound thing that anybody had ever said to me was, I basically quit golf after I was captain of the Ryder Cup team
Mm-hmm.
because I got crucified for putting Tiger and Phil together. And I was so disgruntled with the golf world at the time that I thought, you know what, y'all all have the answers. I'm sure you know better than me, so I'll just give it to you. And I went and developed Big Ranch, and I didn't even play golf for about 5 years. And in the middle of the fourth year, Jackie calls me on the phone, and he says, Hal, he said, I want to come out to Big Ranch tomorrow, and I want you to meet me on the tee. I want to watch you hit some balls. And I said, Jackie, I hadn't hit balls in 4 years. And he said, see you on the tee at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm driving 3.5 hours, so be there. So I thought that was pretty cool for an
Mm-hmm.
85-year-old guy to do that. So I meet him on the tee, and he says, Hal, he said, if you could sell your golf game, how much would you sell it for? And I said, that's an interesting question, but how in the world could I do that? Because it's not possible. I can't extract my game from my body and give it to someone else. He said, just come on, give me an answer. He said, if Michael Dell right over here in Austin calls you today and he says, I want to buy his game, how much would it be? He said, would it be 10 million? I said, at least 10 million with all the hours I've got into it.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so then you tell me why you would treat something as lackadaisical as you've treated your golf game for the last 4 years when it means that much to you. He said, I got to go back to Houston. I'll see you later.
Wow, that's awesome. That's tough love, but it's right, because I remember when I was fighting it in '99, 2000, and trying to keep my card. Sissy says, "Hey, when you're home, you need to be home with your mind, and when you're on the road, your mind needs to be on the road." I mean, Bruce Litsky did it about it in Nicklaus. They did it about as good as anybody were able to separate you. You're right, and I got to the point where it's like, I hope I just lose my card. Well, you know what? I did, and then I wished I had it back. And it's
Well,
tough.
Jim, the funny part about it is most of us think if we treat it that way, we'll lose it.
Mm-hmm.
But the beauty of it, if you treat it that way, then you keep things in perspective. Most of us got our journey and our golf game out of perspective.
Mm.
And everything else suffers when you get it out of perspective like that.
True. And you became a dad and part of the family thing. I know for me, I struggled with the fact of wanting to be a good dad and wanting to be around them and then trying to play. Well, what are the challenges once you become a dad and trying to be that competitive golfer? As you said, you kind of fell out of love with it after the Ryder Cup.
Well, it's certainly a challenge to be great at everything you do. And, I mean, we all have children. We want to do the best we can. And, I mean, we're living in a world of entitlement right now. Most of the kids think it because it's easy for them. And, nothing was easy for you and I, Jim. When you play a game like golf, in order for you to reach the pinnacle of the game, you have to dedicate yourself and everything you've got to it. Mm-hmm. Very few people do that by accident. It's a plan from the get-go, as you well know. And the better you got, the further along on the journey you were, the more intense it became to maximize what you had. And, trying to be great at everything is pretty hard to do. And, like you said, Barbara Nicklaus helped Jack be the great family man that he was, because every time a child said something to him about her, that Dad's not here, and she would back him up and say he's out making a living so that you can do the things you want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's you're right. And I think and then the basis of this podcast and the book Only One Shot is what separates the elite from the rest. And you've hit on that a little bit in your mind. What makes the elite player the elite player?
Well, the elite player is having a team of people that love him and love his mission with him, so that they can help him do it. No one can do this by themselves. Mm-hmm. You didn't do it by yourself. I didn't do it by myself. There were other people that contributed along the way. And likewise, there are other people that take away from it too.
Right.
And so you've got to be aware of everybody that's supposedly on board. And, it's one thing that we all had was a person that was willing to tell us the truth. You called it tough love a minute ago. Mm-hmm. I just call it the truth.
Truth, yeah.
Sometimes we're hard on ourselves, but we also let ourselves off the hook.
What advice do you have for a young player out there now that's going through that? I mean, they're coming out there. They've all got personal trainers, they got instructors, they got mental coaches, they got all this stuff, agents. I mean, what advice do you have